Hello and welcome to this introduction to Stencil. So what is Stencil or Stenciljs? Well, it is a compiler, a compiler for web components. And Stencil JS is being developed by the Ionic team, which means that it has something to do with Ionic. And yes, it has. Um, so in future versions of Ionic, that is Ionic 4 onwards, the components that we normally use from Ionic will be replaced with web components. So it's not going to be a particular component tied to a specific framework like we currently have, where all the components are AngularJS components. No, in the future, we are going to have native compatible web components that can be used in any framework at all. And because of the speed that comes with web components, its reusability, and all the nice features, I think is going to be great to have a web component replace the component that come with an Ionic framework. So how do we use Stencil in Ionic? Well, according to an interview, one of the Ionic team members stated that one needs not to learn Stencil.js to use the future version of Ionic framework because it's going to be the same. You just import and use it as we've been uh, doing. Uh, so there wouldn't be any need to learn Stencil.js. You can still use Ionic the same way we've been using, but I think it would be better to understand how to build web component using the stencil.js. This has a lot of benefits. It will help us to understand what's going on behind the scenes. We can contribute to the Ionic framework project, and we can also build our own components that will be compatible with the framework. So in this tutorial, I'm going to give you an introduction to how to build a stencil.js application, or an application which has web components all around. Well, there are a lot of features that come with stencil.js. I'm going to go through a process and show you one of the after the other how to use them. For example, it has routing, which is a very awesome feature. The routing is very awesome. It's kind of similar to React.js. So those who use the React router will feel at home. So let's get started. So how do we get started building a stencil.js web application? Well, I'm going to fire up my git bash and cd to my project. Now, if you go to the stencil.js website, you go to get started. Getting started is very easy. You just do a clone of the stencil app starter, and then um, give it the name of your project. So let's say my app or whatever you want to call it. You cd into it. You remove the remote URL, and you do npm install, and that's it. You can start. So let's sorry, get started. All right. So we're going to call our app first stencil. Okay, so that's it. Let's clone it, and then let's cd into it. Git remote remove origin. All right, let's check if Well, everything looks great. Now let's do an npm install, and then sorry, get started. So to start it, you just type npm start, and then there you go. Let me first open the app in a code editor. That's the Visual Studio Code, and let's take a look around the project pin. All right, first stencil. There we go. All right, so that is it. So we have a stencil.config.js where we do a lot of the configuration for the app. For example, if you want to use routing, you have to include it in the collections, which you look at later. More on that later. You have to indicate the components in your app in this section, where this one too, we'll take a look at it later. Let's look at the package.json file. So the start um, npm start will run npm run dev, which is this one, and it will be doing a build and then watching, and then it will run the stencil dev server to serve the app. So let me go through it again. It will first build our application. It will be watching it so that any changes we make sorry will be reflected during live reload, and the stencil dev server will be used to launch our app in the browser and get the live reload. We can also serve it right away by just using the serve, which calls the stencil dev server right away, and that's it. We can do testing, uh, and then we can just build it right away without serving it. All right, so let's see. Well, everything has been installed. So let's run npm start, and there we go. Initializing first build. You see, it looks kind of like Ionic. Yeah. So that's it. Hello, my name is Stenciljs, and this part is actually a component, my name, which has two properties, first and last. Let's take a look at the code. So when we go to the source and we check the component, we have my name component, and we have the tsx file for the component. Sorry, and we have the scss file for doing styling on the component, and we have this testing uh, file for the component. Now when we go into the index, we see that the component, the my name component, has been called here, and the first and last properties here where we've been assigned something. So stencil and then JS, and we are seeing it here, stencil JS. So let's kind of change it. I'm going to change it to my name, Jalom Aguado, and let's see, by saving we get, and that's it. Hello, my name is Jalom Aguado. So how do we build our own component? How do we build components like that? Well, in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to build uh, three component: home component, about component, and contact component. I think later we also look at one other component, and these components are going to be pages. we're going to use routing to route to navigate to this particular component and then show them. So how do we build our component? So let's first build the first component, the home component. Okay, so we going to create our first component. Going to call it home. I'm going to provide the home.tsx file. You're going to also provide the home.scss file for the styling. So we're going to repeat the same for sorry, our about page and also for the contact page. We create contacts.tsx file. We create the contacts.scss. Do the same for about.tsx and then about.scss. About.scss. Sorry. Dot. So that is it. Now let's build a component. So first going to the home and we're going to do an import from Stencil /core, I think, and from Stencil /core we're going to import component, the component component, and we're going to also import properties. These are the creators. So we are being warned that we've imported these but are not using it. So now how do we use the component and the properties? It's very simple. So component, then we are going to provide component options. First one is going to be tag. So what's the tag for this component? It's going to be home, and then the next one will be our style URL. It's going to be the URL to where our style is /home.scss, I think. All right. Let's now write our class. So export class home, and well, there we have it. So what do we put inside the home class to render our component? How do we use the properties creator in our home class? So there is um, a render function that returns our component, the HTML. So let's get right to it and let's see how it works. So render function returns our, okay, so let's put our HTML here. Let's say this is the home, this is the page. So in here we're going to put a variable where a property where we will pass it in the during the declaration of the our component or the element, and whatever we put will be rendered here. So just like the my name, where um sorry, when we pass first, we pass something to the first and pass they are all they are all rendered and displayed. That's what we're going to do. So going to declare, just as it is being declared here, this dot first and this dot last, we are also going to declare here this dot page to be the name of the page. Now, how do we indicate to a class that we're expecting a page property? Well, that's where this property the created comes in. So prop, going to provide the name is going to be page, and the type is going to be a string, and that's it. Very simple. So let's see. Well, we have an error here. Home tag must contain a dash to work as a valid web component. So we have been told that we can never use just a single name as the tag. So let's call it my tag, which will have a dash, and let's see if everything works well. Well, it seems like so. Let's test it out. Let's bring our component right here. So my home, and let's pass page, call it home. So it should render this is the home page. Let's see. So that's it. This is the home page. And there we go. We have our first component working with a property. Okay, so let's remove the property here and remove this also from here. And let's hard code the home page right here, since there will be no use. All right, so let's copy this and just paste it in our about, and also our contact, and make some few changes and then display them. So this is the contact page, contact, my contact. Oh, I think it would be better to call it page contact. Yeah, I think that'll be cool. Yes. All right, let's declare the about. Let's sorry, one other thing. Let's contact css. This one to gonna call it page about class here, and about page, and about css. I think we are good. Let's go back to the home and call it page home. Now let's go to the index file and remove these since we don't need it any longer. Let's create our new ones. So page, so page home, page about, and then page contact. Let's see if all of them render correctly. And there we go. This is the home page. This is the about page. This is the contact page. So that's it. There's just a quick introduction to creating web components, compatible native web components with Stencil.js. In the next section or next tutorial, I'll be showing you a whole lot of things. So I will show you how to now do routing to these particular component, so that we have just we have some links, and then we can just use it to navigate to them, so that when we go to the just slash, we only see homepage. We go to slash about, we see about page. Or if we go to slash about dash us, we see only the about page. We go to contact, we see the contact page. Or we go to contact us, we see the contact page still. So there's it, and see you in the next lesson.